At this
So,
point,
Matt, how's your day going?
this is really what we're going to try.
Well, yeah, let's try it. People might be interested. Tell me something about your day today.
Well, we started way earlier than usual, so I had to get up. And then I checked our YouTube channel, and now I'm here.
Cool. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's
All
do
right,
this.
Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2M Football.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Matt. And we are rounding up our last division of the AFC. It's kind of exciting. It's been an eventful journey.
It's been an adventure, yeah. And by the way, I just want to apologize in advance for how terrible my voice sounds. Getting over a cold.
Yeah, it's just wonderful sitting here basking in sickness.
Yeah, we'll pray for Matt that he doesn't pick it up from me. But anyway, as Matt said, we're starting up the AFC West today. Starting with the first place team in the division, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, we've decided we've come up with a new format that we're going to go in order instead of just waking up and being like...
It won't be random anymore.
What team we start with today? So, yep, the Chiefs.
Yeah, they won that with the 12-4 record. They won the AFC West, which got them a first-round bye in the playoffs. But then they lost to Pittsburgh in the divisional round.
It was... I thought it was going to be a more exciting game than what it was, to be completely honest. But
it was fun to watch, though. It was a defensive struggle. One of the few games that was actually close in this year's postseason.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete blowout.
Mm-hmm.
I just expected it to be high scoring. You know, it's the playoffs, not big powerhouse offenses we'll get to, but Chiefs can put points on the board.
Yeah. But I'd say they relied more on their defense this whole year.
A very unique defense we'll get to.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Matt's got a ton of good stuff on the defense.
Well, it's not like promises we can't entirely keep, but let's do this.
As far as the offense, though, they really got a spark from the emergence of rookie wide receiver and kick returner Tyreek Hill. He really came on strong, especially in the second half of the season, and really became a big part of everything the offense does, in addition to his special teams contributions. But overall, let's take a look at the offense's rankings this year. They averaged 24.3 points per game, which was 13th in the league. 343 total yards per game, which was 20th. 234 of those were pass yards per game, which was 19th. And 109 rush yards per game, which was 15th. So very middle of the pack offense.
Well, and I think it has to do a lot with their style. Alex Smith is a very short, quick passer. He has, I believe... And give me a few minutes while you're talking to check it, but I believe he has the fastest release time out of anybody in the league because he's very quick. He does not hold that ball very long.
Yeah.
And watching him play, it makes sense.
And I have written here, he's a classic example of a game manager quarterback. And a lot of people view that as a negative thing, but it really works for what the Chiefs are trying to do. Smith doesn't make a ton of big plays, but he also doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He threw just 15 touchdowns this year, but also just 8 interceptions, so still not a bad ratio. He also threw for a career-high 3,500 yards this season, which is still low by most standards when you consider guys like Breeze throw for over 4,000 every year. The other thing that kind of surprised me is that Smith didn't run very much this year. I feel like that's been a part of his game in the past, but he only had 134 rush yards on the season and just a 2.8 average per run.
Well, I think a lot of that came from the fact of Jamaal Charles and the emergence of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You know, they have now the better foot game where especially Tyreek Hill with yards after the catch is amazing.
Mm-hmm. He did score 5 touchdowns, though.
Did I miss something complete?
I still can't get past what happened when you tried to say Jamaal Charles.
I just struggled to
sorry.
forward.
We should go back. You should tag that in the timestamps.
Matt can't talk.
But anyway, as you said, the offense relies heavily on a strong running game and some dynamic playmakers like Tyreek Hill.
So I went back and looked it up, and apparently, I don't know, everyone says Tom Brady has the fastest release time, but I thought I remember seeing a stat somewhere with Alex Smith. Maybe I don't know how to work the internet. Why do we do this?
What, this whole thing?
Yeah.
We know what we're talking about.
Okay.
Except for the whole release time thing.
But everything else.
So you mentioned Jamaal Charles.
Yeah, that guy.
And he's been the starter there for a long time, but he's had multiple ACL tears on the same knee in the past couple of years.
Very injury prone.
Yeah, which is sad to see because he's such a dynamic talent when he's out there. And this year, he missed the first few weeks while he was recovering from off-season from the ACL surgery. And he came back week 4 in a part-time role, but he experienced some swelling in the same knee again and ended up on season-ending IR. And he's a free agent, but he wasn't a free agent. They just released him. He's 30 years old, but he had a 5.0 or higher yards per carry average in every full season he's played, which shows how good he's been. But the injury issues are starting to become a concern for him. And
it's a lot of people question those decisions too, and they're like, well, why would you release your star player or one of your star players when they are capable of performing? But if they're on the bench all the time with injuries, they're not playing, that doesn't work for your offense. This offense specifically needs their players to be healthy.
Right, and it's sad to see from a fan perspective because these guys are there their whole careers, they become fan favorites, but as I think we've talked about on previous shows, at the end of the day, it's a business, and you don't want to pay a guy to sit on the bench. And behind him, he got definitely more than capable backups. And Spencer Ware, 25-year-old, he started 14 games this past year because of Charles' injuries. And he had 920 rushing yards with a 4.3 per carry average and scored 3 touchdowns. And he also caught 33 balls for another 450 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Not a ton of big plays for him. And he did fumble 3 times, which is a little concerning. But he definitely showed a lot of promise.
It just takes, I think, some getting used to, especially because he went from a backup to almost a starter. You know, you go from playing with somebody or being in a rotation, and now you're out there for most of the snaps. It's a different mindset. You know, when you're only out there for certain situations, that's what's in your head. That's your mentality. I'm a third short. I'm, a first down runner. But then all of a sudden you're out there playing in every situation because you're a starter. It takes a little bit of getting used to.
Right. But like I said, though, he showed promise. And they're probably going to have him be the starter again next year.
I don't see why not. I mean, especially now with Charles gone.
Yep.
It would make only logical sense to bring him up to bat, as it were.
Yeah, agreed. His backup will be Sharkhandrick West, who was also there last year too, basically as the backup then. And he had just a 3.3 average and 1 touchdown. So it's not like he's a threat to take the starting role from Ware.
But he'll be a comparable backup to Ware, or rotational, I should say. I shouldn't say backup.
Yeah, right, because they'll both get playing time.
Exactly. And I think it's good. I don't think they have many problems in their backfield. A little bit of work, minor things to touch up, but it's not like a train wreck back there where we don't know what's going to happen. As long as everyone stays healthy.
Right. Which these two guys haven't had a history of injuries yet this far in their career. Moving on to their wide receivers. We've mentioned him a couple times already, but Tyreek Hill was the Chiefs' 5th-round pick out of West Alabama this past year. And he didn't play too much at the beginning of the season, like a lot of rookies don't, but then an injury to their starting wide receiver, Jeremy Maclin, forced Hill onto the field more. And it quickly became clear that he needs to get the ball in his hands as much as possible.
I've never seen, or I have yet to see, whichever way you want to phrase that, a player that was more explosive their first time on the field.
Yeah.
And what amazed me was not just as a wide receiver, but as a kick returner too. His speed is ridiculous.
And yeah, you mentioned his returning. He averaged 27 yards per kick return, had 1 touchdown, and that 27-yard average was 3rd in the league. And he also returns punts, where he averaged 15 yards per punt return, which led the NFL. And he also had 2 touchdowns returning punts.
He's just fast. And if you watch... yeah, we're doing great over here.
Yeah.
If you watch this kid on tape, it's amazing because... You always hear them say, they kick it into an extra gear. They kick it into an extra gear. They're fast. I don't know what this guy has or what kind of shoes he's using, but he goes from, patient, but when he goes to take off, I've seen some of the best defensive backs not being able to catch him.
And they've found a lot of creative ways to get him involved on offense, too, whether it's just handoffs. Sometimes he lines up right in the backfield, reverses, wide receiver screens, just anything they can do.
I think the sweep is my favorite to watch him run because he's already running at full speed by the time he hits that line of scrimmage.
Right. And just getting him the ball in space, give him the chance to make something happen, and it seems like at least once per game he would make something big happen with one of those touches.
Definitely the number 2.
He caught 61 balls for 593 yards and 6 touchdowns, and rushed 24 times for another 267 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's 12 total touchdowns on the year for him between receiving, running, and returning. He will clearly be a focal point of the offense again next year too. And so also at wide receiver, they've got Jeremy Maclin. He's been a productive wide receiver his whole career, but he missed 4 games this past year with the groin injury and only had 44 catches, 500 yards, and just 2 touchdowns. Wasn't much of a factor.
No, but once he heals up, he'll be right back in that lineup.
Yeah, but I also think that the emergence of Hill kind of hurt Macklin's role, because prior to that, Maclin was the number 1.
I think Maclin will retain the number 1 spot just because he's proven that he's worked and earned that road, and he was just, when you get injured, 4 games is a lot of time to miss.
Yeah.
But I think Hill has proven a very, very good number 2, and that's even works for Kansas City's favor because they know what Maclin can do, they know what Tyreek Hill can do, and now to have them on opposite ends of the field, you can't really double coverage one or the other. You kind of have to force yourself to play both. And then the emergence of their third threat, which I think you were about to get to.
Oh, the tight end, Travis Kelce? Is that who you're referring to?
How did I know this was coming?
Yeah, Travis Kelce is great. He's 6'5". He's a tight end, as we mentioned, and he is the next best receiver or he might be the best receiver on the team, honestly. Let's see. He had 85 catches for 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns this year. That 85 catches, that was 24 more catches than the second place pass catcher on their team. He's their leading receiver at the tight end position.
We all know how I feel about that.
Right, Matt loves his tight ends. And he also had over double the receiving yards of anyone else on the team.
That's what blew my mind. It's one thing to be a receiving tight end. It's one thing to double your second place receiver.
Right.
Which is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
It kind of boggles your mind when you're looking at these numbers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But he's a beast.
He is. One thing, though, is he has to watch his temper because he got in trouble a couple different times this year for yelling at the refs during the game, just various personal fouls during the game, and also just bad-mouthing the refs outside of games, too. I think he got fined for it a couple times. He's got a temper on the field.
Yeah, and the new rules are frustrating. I get that. And the rules are always frustrating. But like you said, you have to think about the team. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping the team by drawing penalties, getting thrown out of games. So, and especially when you're this type of player, you don't expect that out of one of your best players. Like, you're a professional. Don't act like a kid throwing a temper tantrum.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's another thing. You always see wide receivers when they feel like they've been interfered with, look for the flag, maybe say something to the ref. Sometimes it's respectful inquiring, sometimes it's rageful yelling. And that's more what Kelce does when he doesn't get the flag that he feels like he should.
Yeah. So I think it's just, I know he's been around too for a little bit, so it's not like you could say
4 years, yeah.
Not like you could say you got to grow up. You just need to change your attitude, and I'm sure the Chiefs will address that.
I think so. Andy Reid doesn't like that kind of thing.
No, and he's a really good coach. I like Reid.
Yeah, me too. So, it's nice to see him having success on another team. Yeah. Obviously, he was with the Eagles for all those years.
But I think he fits this system. Mm-hmm. I think he feels at home with the Chiefs, which is something I didn't see in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So Kelce is great. He's an awesome threat in the passing game.
So does that just about wrap up your offensive notes, or do you have any last-minute things?
Just on the offensive line, they're
Go ahead.
Pretty average offensive line across the board. No major liabilities, but they don't really have any standouts either. The only guy I want to mention was the center, Mitch Morse, and he did not allow a sack this season. And they kept Smith pretty clean all year.
Yeah, he only got sacked 28 times, so that's less, it's average of 1.2 per game. Mm-hmm. So that's not bad at all. That makes a quarterback happy.
Right. And yeah, that's it. That's all.
Well, you really can't complain if an offensive line, all you can say is they do their job well. That's what you hope.
It's similar to, I would say, cornerbacks. If you don't hear their name mentioned in a game, they probably did a good job covering their receiver. Yeah,
usually when you hear a specific name like that, it's because something got blown or they made an insane stop.
Right. Yeah. So Oh, we'll switch over to the defensive side of the ball. I think Matt has some notes there.
Of all the defenses to watch, this was the most interesting and bizarre, and maybe the coolest defense to watch, because they have a very specific mentality that I think so many teams try to replicate, but is really hard to do. And it's called the bend, don't break mentality. And in the NFL with high-powered offenses, the Mannings, the Bradys, the Rodgers, like all that stuff, it's very hard to do. And what this bend, don't break basically breaks down to is they were 7th in the league, allowing only 19.4 points a game.
Pretty good.
But then total yards were 24th with 368.5 yards.
Wow, so they gave up a lot of yards.
It's like as you progress down the field, their defense tightened up. And it was just really weird because they would do a mix of man and zone coverage. And the way they would work it is they would always allow, like in the zone spots, for the receivers to be in front of their safeties or even some of the defensive backs. And then they would come up and secure the tackle. But they did a very good job at securing the tackle.
That's the part a lot of other teams don't
struggle with this soft zone. Like, it irritates me because I don't like giving up yards at all. But for them, this works, and they're very good. It's like the physicality of Seattle. They're very good at what they do. And in this team, it's just, however they're training them, it works.
Felt like a commercial was about to start or something.
We got a new tablet for 2M football here, and now it decided it wanted to play music. Sorry about that.
The editor will cut this out, I'm sure.
If I can find it. I just think they're an amazing defense to watch. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then the news we got while we were watching footage and tape and talking was that Eric Berry was re-signed to an extension, who is actually one of my highlight players and my Kansas City free agency pick.
Yeah, they made him the highest paid safety in the NFL. Just good for him.
And he's only 28. So he's got some time left into him. And I actually wrote down that he's very solid and a very consistent player, which you can't say more than that. He does his job. He does extremely well. He had 77 tackles, a forced fumble, 4 interceptions. 2 of those were returned for touchdowns. Wow. So he had 2 pick sixes.
That's exciting.
And 9 passes deflected. So in reality, these numbers, and 77 was the second highest tackle amount on the team. So they don't look outstanding on paper, but the impact he has shows that this defense has great strength to it.
Yeah.
The other player that I liked was D. Ford, who's a defensive end. This is his 3rd season with Kansas City. He's only 25, so he's still got some time left. He's got plenty of time. He had 38 tackles, 10 sacks for the team, a forced fumble, and a pass deflection. And Ford is very good at pushing the tackles to the side. He gets the leverage against them. So as he's coming around, he puts his arm across their chest rather than going straight at their chest, and has just the strength to sort of turn them. And he's very good at getting a coverage sack. So he's very good at kind of, when he is forced to hold his ground, being patient about it, waiting for the quarterback to step off, spin off, and grab him. So I think there is a lot going on here that is very, very good. And they're both young guys, Eric Berry and D. Ford. I don't have the exact details of how much, but before they actually re-signed Eric Berry, I put down that he's an excellent choice and should sign at least a 4-year contract extension, which would put him at 32 years old, which I still think he's capable of playing. His performance, as long as this thing doesn't go off again, you can come up here. His performance overall just got better with time, which is always good for your player, because if they're getting better and being consistent, at least you don't have to worry about signing to an extension and all of a sudden they just...
Right, it's not risky.
Right. He's been improving ever since. His best year was 2012, but he dropped after that, and then he came right back up. He's back on an up climb, so I don't see a problem with signing him to at least a 4-year extension.
And then my free agency pick is also on the D-line. It's the tackle, Dontari Poe.
Oh, yes.
He is 26 years old. He's been with the Chiefs for 5 seasons, and he's only missed 2 games during that span. It's pretty impressive.
Do you have a fun fact?
No.
You don't remember the play? The big play with Dontari Poe?
No.
Defensive nose tackle that took the snap, tossed the football over the edge into the touchdown. He's the only defensive lineman to score a touchdown.
Oh, that's a great stat. No, I didn't have that. Thank you, Matt, for educating us all.
It was like, what game was it in? Was it against? No, it couldn't have been against the Steelers. But yeah, he took the snap and he did the basketball shot over the line.
Okay.
And right into the end zone for a touchdown.
Right. Okay.
Don't look at me like that.
Well, that's cool. I don't know. I really don't know what you're talking about, which makes me sad. He only had 27 tackles this year, which was the lowest of his career. He had 1.5 sacks and 3 pass deflections, though. But the number of tackles he's made has declined in each of the past 4 seasons. And when I watched some of his game tape this year, I really wasn't impressed. And I was surprised because that's become sort of a household name for Chiefs fans. But he didn't look that good when I watched his game tape.
He doesn't look like he's got speed or...
Well, yeah, that too, which is maybe okay for a defensive tackle, but he doesn't look that strong either. He really struggled to push forward into the offensive backfield. Whether it was a run or a pass play, he just didn't get any penetration into the backfield and just wasn't a factor at all in the games that I saw.
If you were to put him on the field, you definitely notice he's not a Vince Wilfork type player.
Yeah, right. Wilfork you can't move him, but Poe, on run plays, Poe routinely got knocked backwards off the ball by the other team's offensive linemen. Even when he wasn't double-teamed, it's acceptable when you're double-teamed, but even just one-on-one, he would get pushed backwards, which is a little disappointing to see for me. So, unfortunately, I have to give him a don't re-sign designation.
Keep buying me time. I'm trying to look up. Hold on.
All right, I agree with your assessment of the defense as a whole, though. This is a great group. Justin Houston is one of the most exciting outside linebackers in the game. They've got some solid corners in Marcus Peters and Phillip Gaines. It's just a really solid group, and like I was saying at the beginning, the team really relies on them because it's not the kind of offense that can make up for a big deficit in points.
Yeah, okay, so it was Dontari Poe who did the basketball shot touchdown. Sorry, I wanted to make sure because I don't want to be like, this is an awesome story, and everybody's like, you're an idiot. I already know that. And it was against Denver because Von Miller came out after and said that he was happy for him. Which
Nice.
is awesome to hear out of a guy like Von Miller.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that, guys. Thank you for buying me time.
So I don't know if you were listening while I was talking while you were doing that.
Linebacker's good, yeah.
But I'm giving Poe a don't re-sign.
I agree. I mean, he was an exciting guy to watch, in terms of that huge touchdown play.
Right. But like I said, his production has declined every year.
I think they could do better, and especially with the defensive heavy draft coming up.
Right.
I'm sure they could find somebody.
I agree.
But so obviously they already signed Eric Berry to an extension. They didn't franchise tag him, which I expected them to do, which kind of surprised me that they didn't. Mm-hmm. But I agree with
contract extension is even better.
Yeah, that gets that out of the way and frees up for money they need to spend elsewhere. So I think it's time to do that phrase that you practice every day.
You want to try it or no?
TLDW.
Nice. Yeah, the TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch segment. So today we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. They had a 12-4 record last year. First place in the AFC West, got a first-round playoff bye, but then lost to Pittsburgh in the divisional round in that very close, nail-biting 18-16 loss. But it was a good season for them, largely because of the emergence of Tyreek Hill, the rookie wide receiver and kick and punt returner. He had 12 total touchdowns on the year between rushing, receiving, and kick returning, and really gives this offense a spark, and I expect him to be heavily utilized next year too. They have cut Jamaal Charles, the veteran running back who's been with them his whole career, which is sad to see, but we think Spencer Ware is more than capable of shouldering the workload again, as he did most of this year due to Charles' injuries. Travis Kelce's a beast. So is Eric. Yeah. So is Eric Berry, and he got his contract extension, which is good for him. Who was the other guy you mentioned?
D. Ford.
10 sacks. He's definitely a big part of this defensive line.
And I think just in the offseason, I don't know. Like, this team clearly has great potential. They made the playoffs. They lost to Pittsburgh. They get mocked a lot for the way their passing attack goes because, Alex Smith's a short pass thrower, very quick down the field move.
Right.
But, it works. It's just like they're cursed in the postseason. While you can argue that their offense is their weakest point, they've got tons of offense here. It's just like they can't make it past the first game.
Right. And I think Tyreek Hill is, I hate to keep mentioning him every other sentence, but he gives this offense a new threat that they haven't had for most of Alex Smith's career, I'd say.
Because Maclin's always been the primary, and it's been just about Maclin and it.
Yeah.
They've had a rotating second that they can't quite get the coverage to pick up on because they're like, now.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't see any major weaknesses top to bottom looking at this roster. We're saying don't re-sign Dontari Poe. So they should draft a defensive tackle in this upcoming draft, which we've mentioned has a lot of promising prospects. But other than that, this is a really solid roster.
Their offensive formation to have, Maclin, Hill, and Kelce all on the field at the same time with Spencer Ware in the backfield. Could you ask for more of a dream team at that point?
There, yeah.
That just makes the defense sweat a little bit because, and it's with the way offenses spread the ball out nowadays, they don't always go to their primary like it's a given. But now all of a sudden, your primary is literally everybody on that field. It's just a matter of who gets open first.
Right. And so I think there's no reason the Chiefs won't be back in the playoffs next year.
I don't think so. I think they're going to have good, because this entire division is very competitive.
As we're going to find out, yeah, this is a tough group.
But to see Kansas City back in being mentioned in a positive light and Andy Reid finding success, I think this team is headed in a great direction, and this division should be just as much fun to watch next year as it has been this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you guys all for being a part of us today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave comments below. Tell us what you think about the extension for Eric Berry. About Tyreek Hill, who's a very popular name all of a sudden. He went from a nobody to now everybody knows him. So tell us your opinions. Do you think Chiefs are going to make it next year? I don't see why not.
Right.
Our contact information is below. Feel free to email us any questions, comments, concerns, opinions. Check out our Twitter handle.
At 2M_football. That's us on Twitter.
And we will see you all next time.
Peace out.